What is a Person Worth? By that engineer. Chapter 3. Rising Tension. Life has a funny way of letting it know just how much it hates you, and that's what Lincoln was feeling right now. His hopes of not having to wear the suit on Monday were dashed due to the simple fact that Lola had a test she didn't study hard enough for. Being the little brat she is, the princess forced Lincoln to wear the suit, even though they weren't in the same grade. She figured that by being in the same building as him, his luck would spread to her. This came as a mixed blessing. Some didn't care for the fact he wore one of the school's mascots. There was a guy who wore a rooster outfit for the football team. But those that did know who was inside the squirrel suit took the chance to mock him for it. Chandler and a few of his cronies sure made an example of that, giving Lincoln the urge to rip the suit off and pummel the kid. However, he didn't want to risk getting suspended for it. 4 hours into the school day, and already the boy was frustrated. Picking the books he needed out of his locker, he heard 2 sets of feet coming towards him. Thinking it was more people wanting to take another jab at his outfit, he did his best to ignore it. "That you, Lincoln?" Turning his head, he was glad to see it was just Clyde and Ronnie Ann. "How did you know it was me?" "Well, this is your locker, right, lame-o?" the tomboy answered. "Yeah." He put his math book away. "So what's with the suit?" Clyde asked. "I didn't know you became the new mascot for the softball team." "It's not really like that. My whole family thinks this suit is a good luck charm." Ronnie Ann couldn't help but laugh. "Luck? That's gotta be the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Luck doesn't get you anywhere in life. Skill does." "Not in my crazy life." "How'd you end up wearing it anyway? I didn't think you were that interested in sports," the nerdy boy questioned. The white-haired boy sighed. "Lynn brought me to her stupid game last month, and she ends up bombing it. It's the only time I've been to any of her games because I'm busy with my other sisters, and then she blames me for her loss, thinking that I somehow jinxed it," he explained, his frustration ever so clear. Ronnie Ann grew irritated. "That does sound like something she'd do. I think her main weakness is that she can't blame herself for anything." "So you put the suit on to make her believe you weren't bad luck?" Clyde surmised. "Yeah. Long story short, my whole family thought I was bad luck, so I had to prove them wrong. Now they think I'm good luck whenever I have this thing on." "Well, why don't you just take it off?" the African-American pointed out. "'Cause every time I do, I gotta put it back on within a minute. And if I try to take it off while my sisters are in the middle of something, bad things start to happen. I don't know, maybe I am good luck to them or something. But I can't wear this thing in the heat, and it seems whenever I get dragged to their shindigs, something bad happens to me." "Like what?" the girl asked. "Well, let's see. Yesterday I almost got eaten by an alligator." "Wow, that is odd," Clyde stated. "Maybe we can try to find some other way to convince your family that you're not good luck either. That way you're neither good nor bad." "I guess, Clyde, but that's gonna be tricky. I had to put this suit on just to prove I wasn't bad luck. What would I have to do to prove I'm not good luck?" "Like I said, luck won't get you anywhere. Skill does. And if that doesn't work, I'm sure a little persuasion could help." The Hispanic girl chuckled, cracking her knuckles. "Thanks for the thought, Ronnie Ann, but I don't think violence is going to solve anything." The girl shrugged in response. "Who knows? These beauties have gotten me through quite a few of my problems." Ronnie Ann kissed her fist. Lincoln could have agreed with her in that regard, but there was one particular problem. He wasn't a violent person. Sure, he'd gotten into fights with the sisters, but only if he was rather pissed about the situation. Not only that, but he was fairly sure if he'd gotten into a fight with any of his sisters, He'd likely lose as he could never bring himself to harm them severely. Yet such an option wasn't entirely out of the window, given how his family was treating him right now. "Lincoln!" a shrill voice yelled out. The trio looked and saw Lola storming up to them, clearly upset about something. "Did you take your costume off at any point today?" The white-haired boy deadpanned. "No, I've been wearing it since this morning." "Then why do I have a B on my test?" She pushed the paper into his face. She then grabbed a cuff of the front of the suit to pull him to her level. "How am I supposed to be perfect if you're not keeping your end of the bargain?" The little princess quickly found herself pulled away from her brother, only to come face to face with a certain tomboy's glare. "How is it Lincoln's fault that you got a B on your test? Was he supposed to help you study or something?" Well, no." "Then shut your yap. You got that grade because of your own faults. If you studied, you might have gotten an A, and no amount of luck would have helped you regardless." Ronnie Ann dropped Lola on her butt, who looked like she was about to cry. "Now apologize." "Sorry, Lincoln," Lola said sullenly before walking off. The Hispanic girl smirked. "See, Limo, all you need is to set the record straight and give a good dose of reality check." "While I do think that was a bit much, she's got a point. If that isn't something you want to do, you could try the subliminal approach," Clyde suggested. "I guess that could work. Lynn's got baseball practice today, so I guess I can try it with her." Ronnie Ann had to silence her laughter for this. "You're actually gonna threaten Lynn?" "No, I'm gonna try Clyde's approach. Lynn would kill me if I tried to change her mind physically." "Yeah, good call on that," Clyde nodded. "So, you dudes want to get some lunch now?" the tomboy asked, to which the two obliged. Hours later in the day, Lincoln met with the Royalwood Squirrels at their field. With the softball season over, Lynn felt it was time to hone her skills in the fine art of baseball, especially since precision was key due to the fact a baseball is about half the size of a softball, and different techniques are required. Softball pitchers throw underhand, whilst baseball pitchers throw overhand. Not only that, the distance between the pitcher and the batter is greater, plus the baseball pitcher will stand on a mound of dirt while the softballers are level with the batter. Nothing like a challenge to get her into the sport, Lynn would always say. Since the mechanics were mostly the same, the sports lover didn't have an issue adjusting herself to the sport's requirements. As the team's mascot, Lincoln was also required to be there as a show of support. However, seeing Lynn practicing baseball stirred something deep within him. It was at the first baseball game he went to that caused this mess from the start, and he couldn't help but to hold some contempt towards the jock. He pondered how she got into believing things like luck. Surely for someone as egotistical as Lynn, luck would be the last thing on her mind. And yet, her declaration of him being a jinx is what caused this craziness to start. "If I can't get Lynn to change her mind about her dumb superstitions, then maybe I can end this quicker than I thought." A smile formed on Lincoln's face for the first time that day. The biggest tomboy in the family was currently busy practicing her swings, so the middle child took this as his opportunity. "Hey, Lynn." "Hey, good luck, Link." She batted her shoes to kick some dirt off. "What's up?" "Nothing. Just wanted to see how everything's going." "Well, it ain't that much different from baseball." She swung her Louisville slugger again, making a whistling noise in the process. "Here goes nothing," Lincoln thought. "So, how'd you end up losing that one softball game again?" The brunette laughed. "Well, at first I thought you jinxed it, but now that you aren't bad luck, I realized I just didn't have enough luck on my side that day." "Okay, but are you sure it wasn't due to something else?" Lynn got confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you think that maybe—" Lincoln wanted to choose "is" words carefully. Maybe the other team simply practiced better to counter you? He gave a sheepish look under the costume. Whoa, 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 back up there. Are you implying my skills weren't good enough for that one game? Lynn asked, a glare forming on her face. Well, I mean it can happen, right? Maybe you didn't toss the ball in a certain way, or... Lincoln was silenced when a bat was pointed an inch from his face. Listen here, Lincoln. I practice day in and day out for sports, and sometimes even skill isn't enough to win, and mine are at the very top. Why do you think I do these rituals to the softball gods? Of course now I have to do it to the baseball gods, but you see my point. That's why I need you in that costume when the games come rolling in. She got within an inch of his face. Even with the squirrel head on, Lincoln could easily feel the heat of her gaze. If you insult my skills again, this bat is going to be married to your face. Capiche? Lincoln nodded fearfully. You're lucky you're a good luck charm with that suit on. Lynn finished before storming off. The boy breathed in deep and sighed heavily. Nipping this in the bud is harder than I thought. Maybe I should have talked with Lisa first. Hey, wait. Lisa, that's it! Surely she'll have some common sense left in her. During the ride home, Lincoln sat a comfortable distance away from the sports fanatic of his sister. She seemed to be at ease, but at any time she looked at Lincoln, her face contorted into a glare. He shuddered whenever she looked his way, but thankfully he had room to avoid her at home. He waited for Lynn to disappear into her room before making his way into his. Once the suit was off, he walked over to the genius and baby's room, knocking softly on the door. You may enter, a monotone voice replied. Lincoln stepped in and saw Lisa studying a strange mixture. He didn't want to know what it was, and he hoped it didn't somehow blow up in their faces. Lisa, I need your help. What else is new? Just turn around. I'm not wearing the suit. The 4-year-old looked at their brother, who was dressed in his usual attire. The genius just shrugged. So you finally stopped wearing that thing in the house. Good for you. The sarcasm in her voice irritated Lincoln a bit. Wait, you're not freaking out that I'm not wearing my good luck charm? Oh, pish posh. I stopped believing in that nonsense 2 weeks ago. Wait, what? Lincoln yelled, now furious. You knew I wasn't good luck either, and you didn't say anything? At first, Lincoln, I actually did believe you were bad luck, but after some mental analysis, critical thinking, and the application of common sense, I came to realize that this whole luck shenanigans is nothing but tomfoolery, same as the time we visited Grand Venture State Park and the whole Dowell incident. Lincoln's anger diminished somewhat. So you admit you were being stupid? He smirked. Lisa furrowed her eyebrows. I would rather say inane, but yes. But why, Lisa? Why didn't you say anything on my behalf? Do you realize what I've had to go through? I do, but I'm sorry for that. I did have the thought to tell our blood relatives that your bad luck was nothing but a play in their imbecilic minds. But given the circumstances, I doubt anyone would have listened. Plus, I saw you indeed needed some alone time, just like I do when I'm busy working on my studies. However, when it came to the point you got kicked out, I tried to convince Lynn that her whole luck-based schism is a big fat hoax. The little girl grew irritated. Sporty has got to be the biggest thick-headed member in this family. I'm surprised she doesn't have an intellectual disorder. But what can I do? That I'm not sure. I was hoping by you telling the truth they'd drop this act, but it only seemed to have gotten worse. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if nothing short of blowing a fuse would set the record straight. But there's gotta be someone in this family who's willing to listen to reason. I hate having to wear that silly costume, and every time I do, something bad happens to me, Lincoln yelled, growing restless. Yes, I've heard about the gator incident yesterday. Clearly the security on the pens was not up to date, and I'm sorry, Lincoln, but I'm unable to help you with this endeavor. I've tried to convince them, but the deficient in this house is more than I can handle. Plus, I'm in the middle of some important work. Lincoln crossed his arms. And what is more important than the overall health of your only male sibling? He imitated the last part in her voice. For one, I'm trying to see if I can convert everyday water into a useful fuel source. And second, this whole situation makes it an interesting case study. The 11-year-old just groaned. Oh, figures she would see this as a chance to use her own family as test subjects for whatever the hell she wanted to do. Just forget it, the boy said in a defeated tone before walking out of the room. The next 3 days weren't any better, as Lincoln was dragged to a number of his sister's activities. The weirdest part of it was that something always befell on him, no matter how innocent he as, or how odd or unusual it seemed when one of his sisters remained unharmed. At Laurie's golf tournament, after hitting the ball, it careened off a wasp nest before landing right in the hole, giving the 17-year-old a hole-in-one. However, the insects were less pleased about being disturbed, but instead of attacking Laurie, they attacked the giant squirrel as they perceived it as being a bigger threat. Thankfully, the suit protected Lincoln, but he was displeased about the whole event nonetheless. At Lenny's fashion show, the blonde did a spectacular job showing off the latest fashion trends. At one point, it looked like one of the stage lights might drop down on her, but thankfully none did. In Lincoln's case, a rope suspending a bag of sand had been worn down before it eventually couldn't handle the weight of the bag, causing it to land directly on him. He needed an ice pack for his head after that. At one of Lola's pageants, it was already embarrassing enough to wear the suit, but how about when the springs of your seat are faulty? Lincoln was catapulted out of his seat and into the ceiling. Lola won due to being able to get him down, but people still laughed at the squirrel anyways. Perhaps the most outlandish act occurred during Lucy's grave digging contest. While digging, the goth hit a ground wire, but wasn't electrocuted due to the leather gloves she was wearing. Lincoln was standing under a light post at the time, and the recurring shock throughout the circuit sent the bolts of lightning coursing through him when the bulb above had broke. He was paralyzed for a couple of minutes, thankfully, but the suit was a little scorched. Later that same day, Lynn had a baseball game, and the boy ended up catching a few fly balls to the chest and back. While Lincoln was thankful the suit took most of the punishment he had been subjected to, he was slowly losing his mind. He was effectively sure the squirrel suit was cursed, as none of these circumstances ever happened to him before the whole bad luck thing started. He really wanted to trash the damn thing, but he couldn't over the simple fact his family, minus Lisa, would make him wear it to suit their needs. Even though they cared for his injuries, the suit would almost look like he was never harmed by the time Lenny and Lola were finished with it. In comparison, the boy still had a few bruises from the baseball hits and bee stings. It was the end of the school day on Thursday, and Lincoln had a scowl on his face. If this keeps up, I'm going to trash this stupid thing, Lincoln said to himself as he walked towards the school exit, carrying his book bag. I don't care if they need their stupid luck to achieve anything. Lisa was right. My family is a bunch of He was cut off by the sound of honking school buses pulling out of the parking lot. Shock ran through him as he tried to flag down his bus. Hey, wait! I'm still here! Come back! Naturally, his cries fell on deaf ears as his easy ride home left without him. He did see some of his little sisters through the windows. It seemed they didn't notice he was missing. Urgh! Fine! I wanted to walk home anyway! Lincoln yelled to no one in particular. It wasn't as hot as it normally would be for a spring day, but Lincoln began to sweat anyways because he might as well have been wearing a heavy coat with that costume on. It wasn't a long walk to his house, but taking the bus would have made the trip a lot faster. What the boy didn't know was that this trip would end up as a mixed blessing. 5 minutes of walking down the street, a group of boys noticed him. They were from Kentucky, the town Lynn's team beat in baseball yesterday. It seems they were rather bitter about the shutout Royal Woods gave them.
"Isn't that the mascot for those dumb squirrels?" one of them said. "Yeah, Lynn sure seems to rely on that stupid thing a lot for some reason." "Well then, how about we demoralize them?" "What do you mean?" another asked. "We take the mascot, beat him up, then ship him to the school. They'll be so crushed they won't even think about playing baseball anymore." "Ain't that gonna get us in trouble?" "Not if we make it look like an accident," the first boy grinned.
Lincoln took the hat off to vent some heat when he heard footsteps behind him. Turning around, he sees a group of boys that were roughly twice his size. He gulped audibly.
"Can I help you?" "Yeah, we noticed you're wearing the suit of those sissy Royal Woods squirrels. How about we go for a ride?"
"Actually, I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, so—" Lincoln smiled sheepishly.
"We're not asking,"
another said as they surrounded the poor boy. Lincoln had to get out of this quick before he found himself being roadkill. Look, a cool pickup! Thankfully, the adults fell for this trick, giving him a few precious seconds to push one of the boys out of the way before breaking into a sprint. Realizing the trick, the Hazeltucky boys took off after him. Lincoln's mind is racing. He was still a ways off from home. None of his friends were close enough to back him up, and he had no clue where any of his sisters were. He also knew he couldn't keep up the pace for long, as he was sure those boys would catch up to him. Looking to his left, he spotted the town dump. Not the most sanitary place to be, but it was definitely big enough for Lincoln to lose his pursuers. He ran to the fence and climbed over it, leaving the head of the costume behind in the process. The 11-year-old didn't care, though, because he might have bigger concerns soon enough. When he climbed the fence, there was a "Beware of Dogs" sign bolted on. The boys climbed after him, clearly disinterested in the empty fake squirrel head. Lincoln made a series of turns before coming to a stop behind a mound of scrap metal. He sat there, breathing heavily to catch his breath. The boys screamed around as they continued to search for their prey, but to no avail. Minutes passed, but Lincoln couldn't hear their cries anymore, and assumed they had left. Stepping out of his hiding spot, Lincoln cautiously looked around. It was still mid-afternoon, but the shadows made the tall piles of junk made his choice of hiding seem creepy. It didn't help he got lost when trying to hide. The boy looked around anxiously, and he walked toward what he assumed was the exit. He also hoped that warning about dogs wasn't real. This proved to be false as Lincoln heard growling behind him. Turning his head, the white-haired boy saw 3 bulldogs, and they had the look of a killer in their eyes.
Nice duckies." Their growls increased before they broke into a sprint, barking while doing so.
Lincoln's eyes went wide as he tried to shoo them away, but to no avail. The 3 dogs jumped him and started tearing at the suit. One even tried to go for his neck. Lincoln flailed around to get the animals off of him, but this didn't help much. However, he was given a moment to react when one of the dogs tried to go for his face again. Acting on instinct, he smacks the dog away before taking his bag off. Using his bag as a bat, he swats the other 2 away, but they don't leave. The trio of dogs regrouped for a moment before running at Lincoln again. This time, however, he wasn't going to be caught off guard. One jumps at his face while the other 2 attack his legs. Their teeth don't pierce the suit enough to damage his legs, but Lincoln could feel a bit of pain as the teeth scraped them. The boy manages to throw one of the dogs off before using his bag to bat another away. He then slams his bag on the head of the third dog, rendering it unconscious. One of the other two jump at him, but out of anger, Lincoln bats the dog into a pile of metal and hears a rather sickening squelching sound. To his horror, the dog was impaled on several pieces of metal that were jutting out like spikes. The last dog that was still walking whimpered upon seeing its fallen comrades. It scurries off before something bad could happen to it. The boy was devastated beyond words. He couldn't believe he actually ended the life of another creature. No matter how much he wanted to look away, he just couldn't. Blood dripped down from the metal from the points of impact on the dog, and even one of its eyes was severed from his head like meat on a stick. Something stirred in the boy's stomach before it felt something coming up. His cheeks puffed for a moment before he emptied the contents of his stomach. Lincoln sat on the ground before looking at his hands, or rather the brown hands that were part of the suit he was wearing. Lincoln's shock soon turned to anger. He was absolutely fed up with the suit. This thing has been a bane of his very existence. Ever since he put it on at Lynn's stupid game, nothing but bad things have happened to him while his family gets to go on without injury. For crying out loud, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to be the butt of the joke in this family? All I wanted was some time to myself, and my entire family flips out over some superstitious bullshit. Lincoln would never utter a swear, at least until he was older, but at this point he just didn't care. He undid the zipper on the back of the suit and tore off what was left of it. Spotting a burning pile of furniture, Lincoln didn't hesitate to drag the suit over and toss it into the inferno. However, something looked oddly familiar about this furniture. "Is this my bed?" he said in shock. He could also see parts of his dresser in there as well. His mother said they sold his furniture. Apparently that was a lie. They threw my stuff out like it was trash. Sadness seemed to be taking over, but instead, this was pushed down by concentrated amounts of hatred. Lincoln's body shook with rage. His family viewed him as a good luck charm. They threw out his stuff, and they seemed to care little about how all this was affecting him. Gritting his teeth, the boy stood up and began stomping his way out of the junkyard. He snorted with each breath he took as he traveled back on. He had a few choice words to say to everyone when he gets back. That is the end of Chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed. And I'm so looking forward to Chapter 4.